Campfire Horror Stories is a collection of chilling tales rooted in the eerie truth of real-life events. Each story is drawn from actual occurrences, with names and certain details altered to honor the victims and their families. Prepare yourself as we uncover the haunting truths that linger in the darkness of real-life true crime stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more upcoming stories. Today's story, an eerie and bloody case that took place in the heart of New York City's East Village in August 1989. Anna Berger was a young Swiss dancer seeking the pulse of artistic freedom, met David Rizzo, a drifter whose mystic charm masked a mind unraveling in shadows. What began as a fleeting spark in a park meeting turned into a nightmare, a chilling tale woven from true events. Names and certain details have been altered to honor the victims and their families, but the haunting truth lingers. In the city's darkened corners, some connections and meetups can fade into true nightmares. The disappearance of Anna Berger. In the blistering heat of August 1989, New York City's East Village was a cauldron of chaos and creativity. A neighborhood where the American dream frayed at the edges into something raw and unpredictable. Tompkins Square Park, that ragged oasis of cracked concrete and wilting trees, served as the beating heart of it all. By day, it buzzed with skateboarders carving lines across the pavement, artists hawking their wares from makeshift stalls, and activists chanting slogans against gentrification. By night, it transformed into a shadowy realm of flickering bonfires where the homeless huddled in cardboard shelters and dealers slithered through the crowds like ghosts. The air was thick with the scent of unwashed bodies, cheap incense, and the ever-present haze of marijuana smoke that clung to everything like a second skin. Sirens wailed in the distance, a constant reminder that the line between survival and oblivion was thinner than a razor blade. It was in this volatile ecosystem that Anna Berger, a 26-year-old dancer from the serene valleys of Switzerland, found herself adrift. Born in a picturesque village near Zurich, Anna had grown up surrounded by snow-capped Alps and the orderly rhythms of Swiss life. Church bells tolling on Sundays, fondue dinners with her tight-knit family, and ballet lessons in a sunlit studio where discipline was as natural as breathing. But Anna craved more than the predictable. She yearned for the wild pulse of the unknown. At 18, she had pirouetted her way into Zurich's prestigious dance academies, but it wasn't enough. The Martha Graham School of Contemporary Dance in New York beckoned like a forbidden lover, promising raw expression and freedom from the constraints of her homeland. She arrived in Manhattan that spring, her backpack bulging with leotards, point shoes, and a dog-eared journal filled with sketches and dreams. Her dirty blonde hair, often tied in a messy bun, framed a face that was equal parts innocent and defiant. High cheekbones, piercing blue eyes that sparkled with curiosity, and a smile that could disarm even the most jaded New Yorker. To pay for her classes and the exorbitant rent on her tiny walk-up apartment on East 7th Street, Anna took a job as a topless dancer at a seedy club called the Velvet Rope off Avenue A. The work was degrading, the patrons leering shadows in the dim red light, but she told herself it was temporary, a means to fuel her art. "I'm not selling my soul," she'd whisper to her reflection in the cracked mirror backstage, "just borrowing time." Her roommates, Emma and Jack, a young couple scraping by on freelance gigs, Emma as a graphic designer, Jack as a bartender, became her surrogate family. They shared laughs over late-night pizza, swapping stories of heartbreak and ambition in their cramped living room, where posters of Warhol and Basquiat peeled from the walls. Emma, with her pixie cut and tattooed arms, admired Anna's grace. Jack, lanky and sarcastic, teased her about her Swiss accent but always saved her a slice. Yet beneath Anna's buoyant exterior lurked a quiet ache, a homesickness that manifested in tearful phone calls home and solitary walks through the park, where she'd sketched the eclectic parade of humanity. Punks with neon mohawks, Vietnam vets muttering to themselves, and street performers juggling fire for spare change. Enter David Rizzo, a 29-year-old drifter whose life was a labyrinth of delusion and despair. Tall and gaunt, with a wild mane of dark hair and a beard that obscured his sharp features, David cut an imposing figure in the park's underbelly. Born in a dusty trailer park in rural Texas, his childhood was a nightmare scripted from the darkest corners of the American South. His mother, a fragile woman plagued by addiction, had died when he was just 3. Her body found bloated and decomposing in the sweltering heat after days of neglect. The image seared into his young mind, twisting his psyche like a wildfire. Foster homes followed, each more abusive than the last, until he fled at 16, hitchhiking across the country in search of something he could never quite name. By the time he washed up in New York, David had reinvented himself as a self-proclaimed guru and marijuana dealer. He clutched a battered Bible in one hand and a live rooster named Clucker in the other, preaching sermons that blended biblical fire with paranoid rants about government conspiracies. The CIA's in the water supply, he'd bellow to his ragtag followers, addicts, squatters, and lost souls who gathered around his campfire for free joints and the illusion of wisdom. Pot's the antidote, brothers and sisters. It opens the third eye. His eyes, wild and bloodshot, held a magnetic intensity that drew people in, even as his ramblings veered into the absurd. He lived in a squat on East 9th Street, a derelict building filled with the echoes of forgotten lives, surviving on odd jobs like washing dishes at greasy diners or peddling dime bags to park dwellers. Their fateful meeting unfolded on a stifling afternoon in early August. Anna sat on a weathered bench in Tompkins Square, her sketch pad open on her lap as she captured the scene. A group of Hare Krishnas chanting in saffron robes, a dog walker tangled in leashes, the sun glinting off discarded needles. David approached with the confidence of a street prophet, his rooster perched on his shoulder like a feathered sentinel. "You draw like an angel fallen from the mountains," he said, his voice a gravelly drawl laced with Texas twang. He offered her a joint rolled with practiced fingers, and she accepted with a laugh, her Swiss reserve melting in the heat. They talked for hours as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the park. Anna shared her dreams of dancing on Broadway stages, her frustration with the city's relentless grind. David spun tales of his wanderings from the deserts of Arizona to the beaches of California, painting himself as a mystic warrior against invisible forces. "The world's an illusion, sister," he said, inhaling deeply. "But you and me? We're real." By dusk, charmed by his eccentricity and flattered by his attention, Anna invited him back to her apartment for a beer. Emma and Jack exchanged uneasy glances when he arrived, Clucker clucking softly in a cardboard box, but they said nothing. The East Village was full of oddballs. What was one more? At first, their connection crackled with electricity. David crashed on the couch that night, and soon he became a fixture in Anna's life. They danced under flickering streetlights to the distant thrum of boomboxes, shared joints on the fire escape while watching the city pulse below, and lost themselves in passionate nights in her tiny bedroom. He called her his alpine goddess, tracing the curves of her dancer's body with reverent fingers. Anna found his madness exhilarating, a stark contrast to the disciplined world of Graham technique, where every movement was precise and controlled. He introduced her to the park's underground, poetry readings in squats, impromptu jam sessions with street musicians, and philosophical debates that stretched into dawn. But shadows crept in slowly, like ink bleeding across paper. David's jealousy simmered beneath the surface, fueled by the drugs that clouded his mind. Marijuana laced with whatever he could scrounge, whispers of harder substances from park dealers. He'd interrogate her about the men at the club, his eyes narrowing to slits. "They look at you like meat," he'd snarl, pacing the apartment. Anna brushed it off at first, attributing it to his rough past. But the arguments escalated. One evening, after a grueling dance class, she came home to find him rifling through her journal, pages torn and scattered. "Secrets, huh? You think I'm stupid?" he roared. She shouted back, her voice echoing off the thin walls, and he stormed out, only to return hours later with a bouquet of wilted flowers pilfered from a nearby bodega, tears streaming down his face. "Forgive me, Angel. The demons got me." The heat wave that gripped the city in mid-August amplified everything, the tension, the paranoia, the fragility of their bond. The apartment became a pressure cooker. No air conditioning, just a rattling fan that stirred the humid air like soup. Emma and Jack tiptoed around them, whispering concerns in the kitchen. "He's unhinged, Anna," Emma warned one night over whispered tea. "Get him out." But Anna, ever the optimist, believed she could fix him. "He's just lost," she'd reply, her voice soft with compassion. "Like we all are." On the evening of August 19th, the storm broke. Anna returned from class exhausted, her muscles screaming from hours of contortions and leaps. Sweat plastered her leotard to her skin as she pushed open the door, dreaming of a cold shower. David was waiting in the dim living room, his silhouette backlit by the flickering neon sign from the street below. Clucker scratched at the floor nearby, an ominous soundtrack. "Where the hell were you?" he demanded, his voice laced with venom. His eyes were wild, pupils dilated from a cocktail of substances, pot, perhaps acid, who knew? "Dance class, David, like always," she sighed, brushing past him toward the kitchen. She filled a glass with tap water, the pipes groaning in protest. "Liar," he exploded, grabbing her arm with bruising force. "I saw you with that guy, the one from the club. You're cheating, aren't you? Plotting against me?" She wrenched free, anger flaring. "You're paranoid. Let go." The argument spiraled, words turning to screams that pierced the thin walls, rattling the neighbors in their sweltering tenements. In a blind rage, David's hands shot out, seizing Anna's throat with a grip forged from years of street brawls. His fingers dug into her flesh, squeezing with feral intensity as veins bulged in his forearms. Anna clawed at his hands, her nails raking bloody furrows across his skin, her blue eyes wide with terror and betrayal. Crimson droplets spattered the linoleum as she gasped, her dancer's body thrashing against his iron hold. Her struggle slowed, her face purpling until she crumpled to the floor, blood trickling from her mouth. Her final breath a choked gurgle drowned by Clucker's frantic clucks. Panic surged through David like a wildfire, his heart hammering as his fractured mind teetered on the edge of collapse. Sweat poured down his face, mixing with the blood on his hands, his breath ragged as he muttered, No, this ain't real. This can't be real." His eyes darted wildly, seeing specters in the shadows of the neon-lit room. This wasn't murder. It was a desperate offering, a ritual to chain her soul to his forever. Trembling, he dragged her limp, blood-smeared body to the bathroom, the clawfoot tub looming like a sacrificial altar, its chipped porcelain stained with years of grime. From under the sink, he yanked a rusty hacksaw, its jagged teeth glinting dully, a tool now destined for horror. The air choked with the coppery reek of blood, thick and cloying, mingling with the sewer stench from the drains. His hands shook as he began the gruesome work, sawing through flesh and bone, blood pooling around his knees, soaking his jeans, each cut a wet, sickening crunch that echoed in the tiny room. In his fevered delirium, David clung to the delusion of purification. His hands, slick with gore, fumbled with pots on the stove, filling them with water and tossing in thyme, rosemary, and a fistful of salt. A mockery of a sacred broth. Her head went into the largest stockpot, the water bubbling red as steam rose, carrying a grotesque, meaty aroma that made his stomach lurch. His mind unraveled further. He dipped a spoon into the broth, tasting the metallic tang, convincing himself it was communion, a twisted union with her essence. His hands trembled violently, the spoon clattering to the floor as he whispered, "You're mine now, Angel," to the empty, blood-streaked room. As night deepened, David cleaned obsessively, bleaching every surface until his skin burned raw. He stored her skull and teeth in a plastic bucket lined with cat litter borrowed from a neighbor's stray, hiding it in a locker at the Port Authority bus terminal, an anonymous vault amid the bustle of transients. The remaining parts he disposed of piecemeal, limbs wrapped in garbage bags and tossed into park dumpsters, bones buried shallowly under benches where dogs might unearth them. Exhausted but euphoric, he ladled the broth into Tupperware and wandered back to Tompkins Square. The park's denizens gathered around his fire, drawn by the promise of free food in a world of scarcity. "Soul soup," he announced with a manic grin, passing out bowls. A homeless vet slurped greedily, fishing out a small bone. "What's this? Chicken?" David laughed, a hollow sound. "Yeah, brother. Special recipe." Whispers rippled through the crowd. The guru had crossed into true insanity. But in the East Village, madness was commonplace. No one called the cops that night. Morning brought unease. Emma and Jack noticed Anna's absence, her bed untouched. David spun a yarn. She'd left for a dance gig upstate, packed in the dark. They nodded skeptically but let it slide. People vanished in this city all the time. Days blurred into weeks. David's behavior grew more erratic, bragging in the park about immortalizing his angel, hinting at dark secrets with winks and nods. "She's inside me now," he'd say, tapping his chest. Word spread through the squats and dive bars, eventually reaching a beat cop from the 9th Precinct. But tall tales were the currency of the streets. Investigations moved slowly. Anna's disappearance didn't go unnoticed forever. Her dance school reported her missing after missed classes. Her family in Switzerland bombarded the NYPD with frantic calls, their voices cracking across the transatlantic line. "She's not the type to vanish," her mother pleaded. The police, overwhelmed by the city's underbelly, dismissed it as another runaway, swallowed by the neon maw. David reveled in his secret, his delusions inflating like a balloon about to burst. He preached louder, Clucker, his constant companion, drawing larger crowds with promises of enlightenment through herb and hysteria. But paranoia gnawed at him. He imagined eyes in every shadow, whispers plotting his downfall. The unraveling came on September 12th. A jittery squatter haunted by nightmares of that soup tipped off detectives. They knocked on the apartment door, badges flashing. Cornered, David led them to the bus terminal locker. The bucket's lid popped open, revealing the bleached skull, teeth gleaming in a grotesque smile. Dental records confirmed it. Anna Berger, 26, was dead. The arrest exploded across the tabloids. "The Butcher of Tompkins Square," screamed headlines, David's mugshot, a wild-eyed specter, plastered everywhere. The trial, starting in early 1991, was a spectacle of the surreal. David disrupted proceedings with tirades about CIA plots and demonic possessions, claiming Anna's death was a frame job by shadowy agents. Prosecutors laid out the horror: blood-stained evidence, the hacksaw, witness testimonies from park dwellers who recounted his boasts. Defense attorneys pleaded insanity, parading psychiatrists who dissected his fractured mind. Schizophrenia rooted in childhood trauma, exacerbated by drugs and isolation. "He's not a monster," one expert testified, "but a man lost in his own hell." The jury, faces etched with revulsion, deliberated for agonizing days. In the end, they acquitted by reason of insanity, committing him to Kirby Forensic Psychiatric Center, where his rants echoed off padded walls. Clucker was confiscated, rehomed to a farm upstate. The East Village bore the scar. Tompkins Square, once a bastion of rebellion, now whispered of ghosts. A dancer's silhouette twirling in moonlight, a madman's cackle in the wind. Anna's family mourned from afar, scattering her ashes in the Alps she loved. Emma and Jack moved away, haunted by what-ifs. Decades later, the story lingers, a cautionary fable of love's dark underbelly where vulnerability meets madness in the city's unforgiving embrace. In the park, amid gentrified cafes and yoga classes, old-timers still murmur, "Beware the gurus with roosters and secrets. The line between passion and peril is razor thin." Thank you all, and see you all soon for more true crime campfire horror stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel.